Değerli katılımcılar, programımıza tekrar hoş geldiniz. Programımız Keynote konuşmalarıyla devam ediyor. Sıradaki Keynote konuşmamız Shinsuke NAGAOKA. Shinsuke NAGAOKA, Japonya'daki Kyoto Üniversitesi'nde lisansüstü Asya ve Afrika çalışmalarında öğretim üyeliği yapmaktadır. İslam Kalkınma Bankası'na bağlı İslami Araştırmalar ve Eğitim Enstitüsü'nde misafir araştırmacı olarak görev yapmıştır. Yüksek lisansını 2004 yılında Tokyo Üniversitesi'nde ekonomi alanında, doktorasını 2009 yılında Kyoto Üniversitesi'nde İslami alan araştırmaları üzerinde tamamlamıştır. Muamelat fıkhı, ekonomi ve tarih olmak üzere farklı disiplinler üzerinden İslam ekonomisi ve finansı çalışmaları yapan NAGAOKA'nın en önemli çalışmaları, modern dünyada İslami finans üzerine bir çalışma ve uygulamada İslam ekonomisi ve finansı yeni uluslararası bir paradigma oluşturmak adlarını taşımaktadır. Şimdi Sayın Shinsuke NAGAOKA'yı konuşmalarını yapmak üzere kürsüye davet ediyorum.
Thank you very much for your kind introduction. Firstly, it is greatly honored for me to be allocated for this precious opportunity of keynote speech. And also, many thanks for all the organizers and sponsors for inviting me for this conference. Also, thank you very much for your attendance. Merhaba, or günaydon. I don't know the Turkish precise, but there are so many scholars and bankers and practitioners and academics from all over the world. So therefore, good morning and selamat pagi, assalamu alaikum. So my name is Shinsuke NAGAOKA. Please call me NAGAOKA. I'm associate professor of Kyoto University, Japan. So I think some of you feel very curious why such Japanese guys study or research Islamic economics and finance. And unfortunately, in Japan, there are very small market for Islamic finance because of the small population of Muslim. But my underlying motivation of my research on Islamic economics is how to analyze capitalism, modern capitalism critically. So actually, my bachelor is agricultural economics, and also the master degree is game theory, no relation to Islamic, very pure mathematics theory of economics. So, but after that, I changed from my PhD research to Islamic economics. But the underlying motivation is how to criticize the modern capitalism. Agricultural economics is some sort of the critique to the industrialized economies. And also game theory is some sort of the critique to neoclassical theory. So Islamic economics and finance or Islamic economic system can provide the future generational economic model. But unfortunately, currently, this is my opinion, my perception, the most players of Islamic economics and finance is a Muslim. But I think there is a possibility or there is a great potential Islamic economics can be the next generation universal system. Therefore, the non-Muslims should share the knowledge of Islam or knowledge of Islamic economics. Therefore, my current research interest is how to Islamic economic knowledge contribute to the next generation global economic system by universalizing. That means to make non-Muslim can understand the Islamic economic knowledge. Unfortunately, especially Japanese is not so religious. Therefore, we cannot share your belief. Therefore, the Islamic economics is based on the belief. But after the universalizing the Islamic economic knowledge, we Japanese and the non-Muslim can understand the advantage of the Islamic economic system. Therefore, my research agenda is how to contribute, how to universalize Islamic economic knowledge. Therefore, my speech at this conference is a series of this motivation. So my presentation is a series of my motivation and the research of some sort of history of Islamic economics, which is one of my research projects. So my research has mainly focused on the dynamics between theory and practice or aspiration and reality of Islamic economics and finance. For those who are interested in my previous research, please find this article. It can be available at my website. So this presentation briefly reviews my previous research on the topic with a special focus on the new discourses and practice in Islamic economics after the Sharia-compliant criticism from the perspective of both academicians and practitioners, and then discuss the significance of potential of the new practice in the context of utilizing or universalizing Islamic economic knowledge. One of the key factors in the rapid growth of Islamic finance in the 21st century, as you know, is the development of new financial products like sukuk, commodity murabaha, organized tawarruk munazzam in Arabic for Islamic liquidity management, and Islamic derivatives. However, recently the practice of Islamic finance faced some criticism called Sharia arbitrage or Sharia-compliant finance criticism. Those who are critical to the current practice of Islamic finance state that new products mentioned above are developed giving high priority marketability, and the Sharia scholars who give resolutions do not consider the compatibility of Islamic financial products as a whole and their purpose. The most famous area of this kind of criticism is tawarruk munazzam, as I mentioned, for monetary liquidization. After the middle of the 2000s, new ideas began to be proposed by the scholars and bankers who aspire the original motivation of Islamic finance in order to overcome the current Sharia-compliant situation of Islamic finance. I classify into two trends. The first trend, which I call New Horizon 1.0, and the second one I call New Horizon 2.0. New Horizon 1.0 seeks to develop new practices for Islamic finance in areas where conventional finance cannot ensure adequate service or may create negative effects. Microfinance lending and social responsibility investment are two representative examples of this trend. In addition to the New Horizon 1.0 trend, another fresh trend has emerged that attempts to revitalize traditional Islamic economic institutions such as Waqf and Zakah through the use of Islamic finance. Although these institutions are still functioning in the contemporary Islamic world, the Ottoman Empire has so many heritage of Waqf and also the active Waqf here, but their roles in national economic system are diminishing. The attempt to revitalize these institutions seeks to re-evaluate their roles in the sustainable development of Muslim community and to tap new markets for Islamic finance. As my continuous field research, I have focused on the second trend, especially on the pioneering case of Waqf revitalization in Singapore. Singapore is a very small country and a small Muslim population, just 15% from the total population. But Singapore has a pioneering practice of Waqf revitalization. Therefore, in my presentation, I will briefly introduce my research project in Singapore first. So first of all, I will overview the situation of Waqf in Singapore. In Singapore, there are 98 Waqf properties in total. In terms of type of Waqf, it can be divided into 68 of estate Waqf properties and 30 of cash Waqf. In terms of type of trustee, it can be divided into 68 by MUIS, Majlis Ulama Islam Singapura, Islamic Religious Council of Singapore, and 28 by others. This figure shows the years of establishment of the estate Waqf in Singapore. When we consider the long history of Waqf in the Middle East, including Ottoman Empire, almost all Waqf in Singapore are relatively very new, mainly founded around the late 19th century to the middle of 20th centuries. Most Waqf in Singapore founded by the Muslim merchants who are immigrants from Arab regions. This map shows location of estate Waqf in Singapore. So you can see most Waqf are located in the central district of Singapore city. As for the regulation and supervision on WACC in Singapore, all WACC properties in Singapore should be under the regulation and supervision of MUIS, according to the Administration of Muslim Law Act, AMLA in short, of Article 59. This act was revised in 1999 to enhance efficient management of WACC properties. This revision gave strong power to MUIS. For example, MUIS can disclose the guideline for the efficient management and Sharia compliance. MUIS can replace the trustees by another or MUIS itself in case of inefficient management by the existing trustees. In addition, there is a punitive clause in case of inefficient management or misuse. In accordance with the trend towards the efficient management of WACC properties, several innovative projects of revitalizing WACC have started from the beginning of the 21st century. For the representative example of renewal of WACC property, I will show the case of Bencoolen WACC project. Bencoolen WACC is located near the City Hall of Singapore, the center of Singapore. This WACC was founded in 1845 with donated houses by Said Sharif Omar al-Junaid, whose family was a big merchant, originally from Hadramaut in Arabian Peninsula, currently Yemen. This is an old photo of Bencoolen WACC before renewal, which consists of just one mosque and 4 dilapidated shop houses. For the renewal of the property, MUIS adopted the scheme of Scoop for the fundraising scheme. In this case, firstly, MUIS issued Scoop to investors and collected 35 million Singapore dollars. In addition, the trustee of the mosque contributes 51,900 Singapore dollars. And then they organize a joint venture with Musharaka framework and build a new building. In this process, Waris, which is a subsidiary of MUIS, take a leading role on any arrangement of renewal of WACC properties. Other cases is the same. This is a picture of newly established Bencoolen WACC, which is a new 12-story building with 1 mosque and 107 service apartment units and 3 commercial office units with and commercial shops in this building. A picture from the other side. This is the entrance of building. This is also the guidance of at the entrance. Also, this is inside the building. So, renewed mosque is located at the ground floor of the new building, inside the mosque. Then, how does MUIS improve the efficiency of management of WACC property? The joint venture lessees apartment, office, and shops at the new building based on ijara contract, and then receives rent from the lessees. The Waris arranges the distribution of the profit to investors via MUIS. Waris itself and the beneficiary of the WACC by trustees. Therefore, more rental revenues, more benefit to the beneficiary, which implies that Bencoolen Mosque can provide more fulfilling welfare activities. We can see several WACC renewal projects as Bencoolen Mosque example in Singapore. This picture is also the renewed WACC property, Masjid Qasim WACC, as the eastern district of Singapore, near to the Changi International Airport, that's the largest airport in Singapore. In this case, there was an old mosque with a 1-story building and apartment. But after renovation, the functional mosque is concentrated at the corner of the land with 3-story building, and shops and the condominium are newly built in the location vacated. This is a picture of the part of shops called Wisma Indah, which are newly built. Most shops are related to Islamic matters, like travel agency for Hajj, Islamic bookshop, and the tailor shop for Muslim. The rent from these tenancies will be distributed to the beneficiary of the WACC properties. This is a newly built of condominium. Currently, several new projects for the WACC revitalization have started. This is a picture, a so-called Red House project at the eastern district of the name of Red House is from the original bakery shop. This WACC was originally founded by Said Muhammad bin Ahmad As-Sakkar, whose family is also one of the big merchants in Singapore, also from Hadramaut. When I visited in 2014, this WACC property is under renovation. This picture is taken in the March last year. You can see the project is still in progress. When I visited again March this year, the renovation has almost finished. Then I visited this month, last month, the project has completed. As the original place of the Red House Bakery shop, a new cafe shop opened, so you can enjoy the Singapore's traditional food, the kaya butter sandwich. Then, what about the impact of revitalization work? The revitalization of work shows improvement in fundraising, profitability, and profit distribution. As for fundraising, become more efficient by using financial products and cyber network. Profitability increase in rate, linkage with market. Profit distribution increase in transparency due to disclosure incentives. Then, what is the implication of the new practice in the context of utilizing or universalizing Islamic economic knowledge? In other words, the mission of my presentation is to consider the potential of utilizing Islamic economic knowledge for the next generation global economic system from the new practice of work revitalization. Before considering the potential of universalizing Islamic economic knowledge, I will briefly review the characteristics of economic systems that have ever been existed in our human history, especially considering from the perspective of mode of exchange. According to Karl Polanyi, he is a very famous economic anthropologist, the characteristics of every economic system which has ever existed can be expressed with a combination of three typical modes of exchange. That is reciprocity, redistribution, and market exchange. In my presentation, I will add the term of plunder to the redistribution phase based on the work of Koji Karatani, who is an internationally renowned theorist and philosopher living in Japan. He is Japanese. This is because redistribution needs something to be redistributed. Therefore, an actor which assumes the redistribution role must mandatorily obtain what he redistributes. In most cases, the actor is the state. The state can redistribute wealth by mandatorily collecting taxes. The original source of the state power to collect taxes is occupation non-violence. Therefore, I use the term of plunder and redistribution instead of just redistribution. Every economic system has included all these modes. The formation differs simply in terms of which mode takes the leading roles. For example, in tribal or archaic economic system, reciprocal mode of exchange was dominant. This does not mean the other modes were non-existent. The other modes of exchange, exchange mode B and C, did not develop because the moments of B and C were subordinated to the principle of reciprocity. As another example, in feudal economic system in the pre-modern Western Europe and pre-modern or medieval China or medieval Japan, plunder and redistribution was dominant. Other modes were subordinated to the principle of plunder and redistribution. Then, how about our modern capitalism? We anonymously agree that our system is dominated by the mode of market exchange. In other words, dynamics of capital. Modern economics has supported the mode, this mode since Adam Smith's invisible hand. However, we need to notice that modern capitalism does not exist only based on the mode of market exchange, as well as other economic systems did. Karatani Koji introduces the axis to this matrix to explain the dynamics of modern capitalism. The horizontal rows indicate degree of equality or inequality, and the vertical columns indicate degree of cohesion or freedom. As coercive aspect of modern capitalism is state. The state mandatorily collects taxes and redistributes wealth and makes wealth. These actions can be realized by hampering our freedom. As equal aspect of modern capitalism is nation. If we all want to conduct economic activity without any constraints, we do not need any state or government because they hamper our freedom. Of course, someone who wants to protect it by the state or government, but the state or government need funding sources, which is tax, to protect them. But those who earn a lot of money in market, lot of money in the market exchange, do not like to pay taxes in order to protect losers. To understand the existence of a state, despite the dominant market exchange system in capitalism, the mode of reciprocity is important. Nation is a sense of solidarity. For example, I'm Japanese, you are Turkish, you are Malaysian, you are Indonesian, you are some other countries and nations. So we are united as a nation, as a national. As Benedict Anderson, who is a very famous anthropologist who majored about Southeastern Asia, he clearly states, in most cases, such sense of solidarity is imaginary. In another word, based on the creation of tradition, which is mentioned by the Eric Hobsbawm, he is a British historian. However, such imaginary sense of solidarity has supported the existing modern state, what we call nation state. Karatani, in his book, The Structure of World History, concludes the characteristics of modern capitalism as a composite system of capital, nation, and state. As we all notice, the modern capitalism is now encountering difficulties, problems, challenges. I think you all share this notion. We also know several attempts to go beyond the existing capitalism. For typical examples, we can mention Keynesian welfare state system after 1970s and Soviet-style socialism. These attempts can be, of course, understood as a counter-movement of the typical modern capitalism. Keynesian welfare system is a counter from the mode of plunder and redistribution, and Soviet-style socialism is counter from the mode of reciprocity. However, I think both attempts do not necessarily achieve success. This is because such attempts were just a movement from inside the composite system of modern capitalism, which consists of capital, nation, and state, although these attempts sometimes state an alternative to capitalism. Therefore, if these attempts partially go successful, the outcome just enlarges one of the composition of the modern capitalism. Keynesian welfare state system enlarges the role of states, that is the mode of plunder and redistribution. Soviet-style socialism enlarges the role of nation, that is the mode of reciprocity. As a result, the dynamics of modern capitalism still exist. I think most movements to go beyond the capitalism can be put on the same trend. Critically speaking, some attempts of Islamic economics and finance to go beyond the capitalism are entangled by this strong dynamics of triangle of capital, nation, and state. For example, the current Sharia-compliant practice of Islamic finance industry or halal industry is entangled directly by the dynamics of capital itself. The current anti-halal certificate arguments are very exclusive to non-Muslim and no future vision for global economic system, which implies such arguments are entangled by the dynamics of ummah instead of nation. Pakistan and Iranian and Sudan attempts to Islamize the economic system in 1980s were entangled by the dynamics of state. This is another example. Then, how can we go beyond the modern capitalism? The only way to defeat the triangle of capital, nation, and state is according to Karatani proposal. The fourth domain in this matrix has a key to solve the question. He calls this domain exchange mode X because this mode has never existed with a dominant role in human history. Summing up his idea about mode X, I can describe the characteristics of mode X as a competitive reciprocity. He does not mention this word term. I make this term to express his explanation or describe his or extend his explanation. Then, what is competitive reciprocity? This exchange mode of reciprocity is partially similar to that in mode A, which is reciprocity. And the exchange aims redistribution of wealth. However, in the mode of X, the reciprocal relation cannot be realized by the internal logic of tribe, community, or family. Redistribution of wealth cannot be achieved by the state mandatorily. In mode X, both are realized and realized by market exchanges. Of course, this market exchange gives high priority on the achievement of reciprocal relation. In other words, equal society, while our general market exchange produces disparity in wealth. The importance of competitive reciprocity is that this mode of exchange can be realized to balance market benefit with social welfare outside the triangle of modern capitalism, state, nation, and capital. In order to achieve the balance, we do not need any internal logic of reciprocity against mode A and any states or government against mode B. Also, we can propose a better use of mode C, market exchange. Actually, this idea is originally from Pierre-Joseph Proudhon, who is well-known as a French anarchist in the 19th century. As a concrete idea for this competitive reciprocity, he proposed workers' associations or cooperatives and credit bank without interest. The final point of he proposed the bank without interest is very interesting point, but due to the time limit, I don't explain this. Now, I will come back to the mission of my presentation. I stated that I will consider the potential of utilizing or universalizing Islamic economic knowledge for the next generation global economic system from the new practice of work revitalization. When we review the structure of current work revitalization practice in Singapore, we find the well-balanced structure between market economy and social welfare. By using Islamic finance, the fundraising becomes easier, and if more revenue from the renovated work properties, more return to the investors. At the same time, more welfare activities. When we compare these characteristics with what I mentioned, exchange mode X, competitive reciprocity, we will find a similarity. Therefore, I can humbly conclude that work revitalization has a great potential to propose the alternative or next generation economic system to the modern capitalism. This potential of work revitalization is quite attractive for me. However, there are issues to be solved. Generally speaking, the current practice of work revitalization is based on the religious faith of Islam. On the other hand, the proposed next generation global economic system should be universal, which means useful to anyone regardless of their religion, what I mentioned in the beginning of my lecture. Therefore, issues are how to universalize Islamic economic knowledge and how to realize the mode X-based system without specific religious faith. I think it is possible to universalize Islamic economic knowledge when we review the historical experience of Islamic civilization. As you know, many heritages in the pre-modern Islamic world, including the Ottoman Empire, contribute to our modern civilization by universalizing Islamic economic knowledge. For example, the concept of shareholding company comes from the medieval Islamic world. That Mudaraba is one of the origin of the shareholding company. But currently, we don't call the shareholding company the Islamic. That is a very universal concept. But when we trace back to the history, this concept or some credit system and some, for example, some other instrument, financial instrument, trading instrument, comes from Islamic world in the pre-modern world. But therefore, Islamic knowledge can be universalized in this era. Therefore, when I am asked, is it possible to universalize? I will answer, yes, we can. This is my lecture. Thank you very much for your kind attention.
Sayın NAGAOKA'ya teşekkür ediyoruz. Kuveyt Türk Katılım Bankası Genel Müdürü Sayın Ufuk Uyan'ı NAGAOKA'ya sertifikalarını vermek üzere sahneye davet ediyoruz.